Record starters, record speeds, and for 9 weeks, insanely close racing. The 10th edition of the Vendée Globe has been extraordinary. On Tuesday, the 14th of January, it looks likely that a new winner will be crowned, a new record set, and history will be made. And if the pre-race favourite secures victory, this will mean much more than winning the toughest offshore race in the world. As the final miles count down to an historic finish at Les Sables Dalin, it's time to take stock. Charlie Dalin on Macif Santé Prévoyance and Yoann Richomme on Paprec Arkéa have been engaged in their own private match race at the front of the fleet for over 10,000 miles. Both are set to demolish by several days the race record set by Armel Leclerc in 2017. Dalin was the popular favourite before the start. A massively talented sailor, he'd taken line honours in the previous Vendee Globe in 2021. But after redress was given to Yannick Bestevant for help in the rescue of Kevin Escoffier, victory had slipped through Dalin's fingers. He'd lost the 24,000-mile, 80-day race by just 2.5 hours. The importance to Dalin of winning this time is impossible to underestimate. Throughout the race he's been under pressure from Richomme, who himself had led the race at Cape Horn. Last week, while still pushing hard, Richomme acknowledged Dalin's impressive performance, saying that if he did take the win, he would deserve it. Meanwhile, isolated in third place, Sébastien Simon on Groupe de Bray is left with a big what if. A broken starboard foil back in the Indian Ocean when he was neck and neck with Dalin compromised his speed on port tack, but his performance since then has been exceptional. Before the start, few had him down as a front runner. Now, plenty were surely wondering, like him, what might have been. But what was clear was that defending third place was a major achievement in itself. The next group of 7 boats have been engaging in an intense rivalry that shows little sign of changing. Jeremy Bailey, Sam Goodchild, Paul Mayer, Thomas Royan, Nicholas Lundven, Boris Herman and Justine Metro had all rounded Cape Horn within a single 24-hour period. Complex weather patterns in the South Atlantic set them a stiff challenge on their race north. They have battled strong headwinds, confused seas and violent thunderstorms. There have been more breakages than anyone had expected as well.
There's a boat down there.
Having dealt with the aftermath of a lightning strike, Boris Herman on Malizia Sea Explorer had a halyard lock break on his J2. This was a similar failure that had affected Thomas Royan and which impacted his ability to mix it with the others in the final stages of the race. Given the anticipated conditions on the climb up the Atlantic, the J2 is the most important headsail. So for Boris, this was an issue that could not be ignored and that required another mast climb to sort the problem, but this time at night. Justine Metro continued to be the highest placed female sailor in 10th. A little further back, a resurgent Clarisse Kremer on L'Occitan en Provence and Sam Davis on Initiative's Kerr had cleared the exclusion zones to the northeast of Rio de Janeiro. They were battling Benjamin de Drew on Goya Environment Water Family, who'd taken a more easterly route. Then there was the tight group of 8 boats, headed by Jean Le Cam in 14th place, more than 350 miles ahead of the next Dagobah boat, Benjamin Ferret, in 20th. They were all enjoying a stable southeasterly airflow around the top of an anticyclone that had developed at the latitude of around 35 degrees south. This had also helped Isabel Josh in 19th, who was on starboard tack as it meant she was unhampered by her missing starboard foil. Further back, Conrad Coleman on MS Amlin in 22nd was leading the charge of the group that had weathered the storm off Cape Horn and the Falklands during the previous week. This included Gurek Sude on freelance.com, who, as we reported, had been swimming under his boat off the Cape to free his Code Zero from the keel. But this brutal race had taken its toll once again this weekend. The group of 3 boats that had put the brakes on during their approach to Cape Horn to avoid the worst of that storm were, as of Saturday night, now reduced to 2. Eric Bellion on Standers 1 Altavia had taken the difficult decision to retire into Port Stanley in the Falklands after his J2 forestay had failed, bringing the very real threat of a dismasting. He planned to make repairs with the help of his team and then rejoin the course, but outside of the race.
Parce que j'ai eu peur, non? Je vais pas savoir l'aventure. Je vais une fois que je suis posé, je vais rencontrer l'aventure que ça a été, quoi. On est à l'abri, le bateau est intègre, il n'y a personne de blessé.
This left Arnaud Boissier on La Mi-Caline and Violette d'Orange on Devenir to carry on punching north into a 25 to 30 knot headwind. But on Sunday morning, d'Orange was having to deal with a breakage that caused her J3 to detach at the head and end up in the water while it was blowing 35 knots. This was leaving her both compromised and with the prospect of a mast climb once conditions improved. Over 1,000 miles back, but lining up to be next round Cape Horn, was Swiss sailor Oliver Heer on Toute Goutte. He was over 200 miles ahead of Antoine Cornic on Human Immobilier and the Chinese sailor Jinkong Zhu on Sing Chain Team Haikao.
哇，太可怕的浪了！
我们现在外边现在正在经历一场40多节的风暴，风是从南极吹过来的，然后现在气温只有3度左右，特别冷，吃点热乎东西取取暖，太冷了。今天是真冷，真是冰天雪地的。我今天到天涯板去换帆，手都冻僵了，特别冷。
After them, there was a 1,200-mile gap to Manuel Cousin and Fabrice Amadeo, who were close to the ice boundary in a cold southwesterly to the south of Point Nemo. Finally, the Lanterne Rouge was Belgian sailor Denis van Winberg on Dieterong Group, around 9,000 miles behind the race leader. But the Vendée Globe has always been far more than just a yacht race. After 40 sailors had ghosted across the start line on the 10th of November, 34 were still racing. And from front to back there have been close battles, some lasting weeks, often within sight of each other. And within the various groups within this race, that continues. But on Monday the 13th of January, Charlie Dalin and Yoann Richomme were playing out the final miles of a match race that had begun in early December, way to the south of Australia. All being well, a winner will be crowned in Les Sables Dalin on Tuesday, and by the weekend the podium will be complete. Victory on Tuesday will not only put a new name into the history books, but the course record for this infamous race will have been utterly smashed. And yet while the champagne flows in France, the Atlantic and the Pacific will continue to play host to some intense battles. On Tuesday the winner may be crowned, but the Vendée Globe story continues.